Everything changed in a matter of seconds. Welcome to a special NFL Nexus explainer. I'm your host, and today we are pulling back the curtain on the tectonic shifts that are currently fracturing the league as we know it. We are looking at a tale of two franchises heading in completely opposite directions, one desperate to rebuild from the ashes of a collapsed empire, and another aggressively cementing a modern dynasty. Before we dive into the cinematic intensity of these front office war rooms, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and comment your thoughts down below. And if you want to take it a step further and really help us keep the lights on, please support the channel by becoming a channel member. Your membership lets us keep doing these deep dives for you. Okay, let's dive into this.
I really want you to sit with that question for a moment. Just think about it. What happens when the gold standard of the National Football League isn't actually made of gold? For nearly 2 decades, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been the absolute definition of stability in the eyes of the media, the pundits, and the fans. They were the immovable object, right? The franchise that literally wrote the book on patience and consistency. But what if that consistency was just a polished mirage? What if the high floor they built was actually masking a ceiling that had completely caved in? We're looking at a situation where an entire city, an entire massive fan base, and perhaps the league itself was completely fooled by surface-level success. We're talking about a systemic failure hidden in plain sight, protected by the heavy armor of regular season wins that meant absolutely nothing when the winter winds started howling in January.
19. Let's pause and just think about that number. 19 consecutive non-losing seasons under former head coach Mike Tomlin. From 2007 through 2025, Tomlin amassed a staggering 193-114-2 regular season record. On paper, it felt like pure dominance. It looked like the ultimate job security in an industry that is famous for churning and turning over coaching staffs every 3 years. But underneath those regular season wins was a rotting foundation. Because when the calendar flipped to January, the absolute truth of their roster construction was brutally exposed for the world to see. The Pittsburgh Steelers have not won a single playoff game since January 15, 2017. Let that completely sink in for a second. They suffered 7 consecutive postseason eliminations. And it wasn't just that they lost, it's how they lost. They trailed by 21 or more points in 6 straight playoff games. That is a feat unmatched in the entire history of the National Football League. They were giving up massive, humiliating 40-point explosions to teams like the Jaguars and the Browns at home. The regular season was a shield. It was a comfortable blanket hiding 9 long seasons of a horrific playoff drought. The standard wasn't the standard anymore. The standard had literally become surviving the autumn only to completely and totally collapse in the winter.
Which brings us to a really harsh reality. Winning without growing is stagnation wearing a trophy case. Back when Ben Roethlisberger was in his prime under center, this franchise was a legitimate, terrifying threat. They went to 3 AFC championship games. They went to Super Bowls XL3 and XLV. But when his career wound down, when his arm could no longer carry a duct-taped offensive line and a highly predictable scheme, the franchise just drove off a cliff. The brutal truth is, Tomlin's defensive-minded philosophy kept the regular season floor completely intact. He could always scheme up pressure, He could always rely on a generational edge rusher to win a close, ugly rock fight of a game in November. But he never built the complex, layered offensive infrastructure required to survive the modern NFL playoffs. While the rest of the league was obsessively studying the McVay and Shanahan offensive trees, Pittsburgh was stuck in the past. They never built a quarterback development pipeline independent of one elite aging arm. They basically ignored the macro trends of the league. And so, the illusion finally shattered, leaving behind a completely empty offensive room and a fan base loudly demanding answers.
So that brings us to Section 1, 14 buckets from scratch. Let's get into the rebuild. Now, let's fast forward to the present day. The teardown has officially begun. We are shifting from that hollow past to the visceral, gritty reality of right now. The Steelers went out and hired their 4th head coach since 1969, Mike McCarthy, the exact same man who, ironically enough, beat Tomlin in Super Bowl XLE. And he has brought a blueprint to Pittsburgh that this building has simply never seen before. Picture this visceral scene. Rookie minicamp in Pittsburgh. The new head coach is not watching from some air-conditioned luxury suite. He's not passing down generalized orders through a headset to an offensive coordinator while holding a clipboard. No, Mike McCarthy is in the dirt. He is on the grass, shoulder to shoulder with his 3rd-round draft pick, the massive, raw quarterback Drew Aller. He is literally breaking down footwork, one single rep at a time. McCarthy is right there in his face, dissecting the 5-step drop, the hitch step, the exact angle of the plant foot, and the hip rotation required to drive the ball over the middle of the field. He's correcting mechanics in real time. According to beat writer Mike DeFabo of The Athletic, who observed this very practice, McCarthy provided more detailed, nuanced quarterback feedback in one single session than Tomlin gave during DeFabo's entire tenure covering the team. Think about that. That detail, it landed like a grenade in Pittsburgh. It exposed the stark, terrifying reality that for 19 years, there was absolutely zero systematic quarterback coaching framework inside this building. No pipeline, no protocol. McCarthy is literally out there pouring a concrete foundation right now because there was simply never one laid before him.
We are witnessing a complete, total philosophical inversion taking place inside that facility. On one side, we have the old regime, defensive instinct. It's that gritty, hit-hard mentality that absolutely gets you regular season wins against inferior opponents, but it completely leaves you trailing by 21 points in the first quarter of a playoff game because your offense simply cannot counterpunch. Conversely, on the right, we have McCarthy's new methodology, offensive architecture. McCarthy's system operates like a high-end diagnostic protocol in a laboratory. He literally breaks the entire passing game down into 14 distinct instructional buckets. He breaks the running game into 7 distinct buckets. It isolates every single solitary segment. We're talking pre-snap reads, protection adjustments, hot routes, drop depths, eye progression. He teaches it individually until it becomes pure muscle memory, and then he seamlessly connects the pieces into a functioning modern NFL offense. This is the exact same coach who took a raw, mechanically flawed Aaron Rodgers out of Cal, rebuilt his entire throwing motion in Green Bay over 3 years, and amassed 125 regular season wins doing it. This isn't just a simple playbook adjustment. This is a total, ground-up reconstruction of how the Pittsburgh Steelers even think about playing the game of football.
Which leads us directly into Section 2, the quarterback time bomb.
But here is the massive problem. McCarthy is working against a clock that he simply cannot stop. He inherited an absolute void where a functioning depth chart should be. He has to show real results by training camp, and the stakes could not possibly be any higher for a franchise desperate to prove this coaching change was a visionary move and not just a late-night panic hire. $20 million. That number right there represents the massive, looming financial weight currently hovering over the Steelers' front office. Aaron Rodgers earned roughly $12 million with Pittsburgh in 2025. He was tendered a contract with a base salary of around $15 million for 2026. But inside reports strongly indicate that any final restructured deal could easily land in this $20 million range. And there were even earlier, terrifying rumors floating around of a $30 million asking price, heavily loaded with guarantees and void years. This massive, gaping gap in negotiations reveals exactly how barren the Steelers' quarterback cupboard was allowed to become. When you don't draft and you don't develop, you have absolutely zero leverage. None. They are being held hostage by the numbers. If they pay this astronomical cap hit for an aging veteran, it completely paralyzes their ability to sign free agent offensive linemen or defensive depth. They are trapped in a financial corner of their own making.
Let's just break down the sheer desperation of this quarterback room right now. They are actively juggling incredibly tense contract talks and facility visits with a highly expensive Aaron Rodgers, desperately trying to figure out if his body can hold up for one more grueling AFC North campaign. At the exact same time, literally out on the practice field, they are trying to rebuild third-round rookie Drew Aller from his absolute fundamental footwork upward, trying to erase years of bad college habits before they cement in the pros. And in the background of all this chaos, they are evaluating veteran Mason Rudolph, who is a known commodity with a very hard-capped ceiling, and second-year quarterback Will Howard, literally just to figure out who even takes the second-team reps in OTAs. This is a franchise that had the incredible luxury of Ben Roethlisberger for 2 straight decades, now frantically scrambling to tape together a functioning depth chart with chewing gum and hope. If the Rodgers deal completely collapses, Drew Aller becomes the focal point of the franchise's offensive future way before his mechanics are actually ready for Sunday speed. The tension in that building right now is palpable. One wrong move and the entire season is over before it even begins.
Moving on to Section 3, Houston's primetime takeover. Now, I want to execute a hard pivot, because while Pittsburgh is out there desperately trying to build an offense from scratch just to survive, another franchise in the AFC is rapidly ascending to national primetime dominance. Welcome to Houston. The Texans are the absolute antithesis of the Steelers' current crisis. They are a modern powerhouse. They're returning with a healthy, incredibly high-powered offense and an elite defense that is projected to be even faster and more violent than last year. Just look at how the league, the media, and the schedule makers view them right now based on their projected primetime slate. First up, Thursday Night Football against the Indianapolis Colts. The last time these two met on a Thursday night back in 2019, Houston took a hard-fought 2017 victory. This time, the stakes are for massive AFC South positioning, pitting Anthony Richardson against C.J. Stroud in a divisional bloodbath.
Next, Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. This is only their 8th matchup ever, directly echoing their first ever game in 2002 when the expansion Texans pulled off a stunning 19-10 upset. But fast forward 24 years, and the Texans actually possess superior Super Bowl odds compared to Dak Prescott and their in-state rivals. The battle for Texas is incredibly real. And finally, Sunday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. A massive playoff rematch under the brightest lights. It is the absolute inevitable collision course. Houston's elite, established, swarming defense engineered by DeMeco Ryans going head-to-head with Mike McCarthy's completely unproven 14-bucket offensive system. The contrast in organizational health between these two franchises could not possibly be any sharper.
And that brings us to Section 4, locking in the future.
So the crucial point here is, how exactly does a team like Houston maintain this incredible momentum? Well, they don't just bask in the primetime spotlight and cross their fingers hoping their roster stays healthy. No, they methodically, aggressively lock down their future. They are cementing their foundational talent to ensure their championship window stays wide open for years to come. Tracking their front office executives shows an absolute masterclass in timing and salary cap management. Look at this timeline. In late April 2026, they draft defensive tackle Cade at pick 36. We are talking about a true, undeniable game wrecker, a unanimous All-American, the Big Ten Defensive Lineman of the Year, who recorded 85 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks in 34 games for Ohio State. His double-team win rate is just off the charts. Then, by early May, they waste zero time, they don't play games, they immediately ink him to a massive 4-year, fully guaranteed rookie deal worth nearly $12.9 million, locking in his signing bonus and base guarantees without a single day of camp holdouts. Boom. Done? By mid-May, they've officially signed 5th-round safety Kamari Ramsey, a player with absolutely elite deep third coverage grades. By late May, they secure their late-round picks, wide receiver Lewis Bond with his incredibly nuanced route running, and linebacker Aiden Fisher bringing that vital sideline-to-sideline speed. There is no hesitation, no prolonged drama or contract disputes bleeding into the summer months, just surgical, ruthless precision to anchor their defense and depth for the foreseeable future. This is exactly how you build a dynasty in the salary cap era.
Let's look at the big picture. In Section 5, the NFL's shifting balance. Let's really zoom out to the macro scale here, because the stark, undeniable contrast between these two franchises, the frantically floundering Steelers and the methodically ascending Texans, is currently sending massive league-wide shockwaves through front offices everywhere. Every single general manager and team owner is watching this dynamic unfold with extreme interest, because the standard has officially changed. If Mike Tomlin, a highly respected man with 19 years of non-losing seasons, a Super Bowl ring, and immense, unquestioned locker room loyalty, can be ousted because his lack of offensive architecture was finally exposed, then every single defensive-minded head coach in the league is suddenly fighting for their job security today. The era of the CEO defensive coach might be completely dead unless they are attached at the hip to a genius offensive coordinator. Quarterback development capability has just become the mandatory, primary criterion for head coach evaluations. Front offices are looking at their own head coaches right now and asking some really hard questions. Does our winning record reflect genuine, sustainable competitive health, or are we just hiding behind a Tomlin-style facade? Are we just waiting to inevitably trail by 21 points when the playoffs start and the game absolutely demands you score 30 points to survive? The Pittsburgh Steelers proved to the league that loyalty has absolute limits when humiliating January losses start to pile up. And Mike McCarthy's success, or catastrophic failure, will dictate the hiring trends for the next decade. If McCarthy succeeds in rebuilding this team from the 14 buckets up, defensive coaches everywhere will watch their job security evaporate overnight.
So I want to leave you with this lingering, intense question today. Is your team's consistency real, or is it just a polished mirage? Are you rooting for a team that is actually growing, adapting, and building modern offensive architecture, or are they just stagnating while wearing a dusty trophy case? Let me know exactly where you land on this in the comments below. And remember, Tomlin is now off reshaping his narrative on national television, while McCarthy is left in the dirt to rebuild a franchise that hasn't seen a playoff win since most of its rookies were literally in middle school. The stakes have never been higher, and the clock is officially ticking. Thank you so much for joining me on this NFL Nexus Explainer. If you want to keep diving deep into the cinematic truth of the NFL, be sure to subscribe to the channel right now, smash the like button on this explainer, sound off in the comments, and surely, if you want to support us, please support the channel by becoming a channel member today. It makes a huge difference. I'll see you guys in the next explainer.